Most people think of air pollution as something that affects the lungs, coughing, wheezing, asthma. Maybe, if you're particularly informed, you'll think of heart attacks. But what often gets left out of the conversation is the terrifying two-for-one deal that air pollution offers the human brain. It doesn't just raise your risk for cardiovascular disease or dementia, it raises your risk for both at the same time. And in the case of vascular dementia, the damage is tightly intertwined. When the air gets dirtier, your arteries, your brain, and your future mental clarity all take the hit, and the effects can be irreversible. Vascular dementia is the second most common form of dementia after Alzheimer's. It's caused not by toxic protein buildup, but by something deceptively mechanical, impaired blood flow to the brain. Think of it as cognitive decline by 1,000 vascular cuts, tiny strokes, damaged blood vessels, chronic inflammation, and slow, silent oxygen deprivation that gradually erodes brain function. Memory, reasoning, language, even personality, all of it can deteriorate as brain tissue dies, bit by bit, from lack of blood. And here's where air pollution comes in, specifically fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, nitrogen dioxide, and O2, ozone, and other components of ambient smog. These pollutants don't just inflame your lungs. They infiltrate your blood, cause systemic inflammation, and wreak havoc on your vascular system. Exposure to air pollution stiffens arteries, increases blood pressure, promotes clot formation, and accelerates atherosclerosis, all well-established risk factors for stroke. And strokes, large or small, are one of the fastest ways to destroy brain tissue and trigger vascular cognitive impairment. In fact, researchers now believe that air pollution may directly trigger microstrokes, tiny, often undetected cerebrovascular events that, over time, destroy enough brain cells to cause dementia. You don't need one catastrophic event. All it takes is a slow drip of inflammatory damage from polluted air over years or decades. Eventually, the cumulative toll is cognitive decline that looks sudden on the outside but has been building invisibly all along. Studies have found that long-term exposure to air pollution significantly increases the risk of ischemic stroke, the most common type, and that those who suffer strokes while living in highly polluted environments are more likely to experience long-term cognitive deficits. One large European study found that even small increases in PM 2.5 levels were linked to higher dementia risk among people with a history of stroke. Another study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease showed that people exposed to higher O2 levels had greater white matter lesions, essentially scarring in the brain's wiring that interferes with signal transmission and predicts cognitive decline. And it doesn't stop with stroke survivors. Air pollution is now being recognized as a silent contributor to vascular damage in people with no obvious symptoms. Young adults, even children, may already be showing early signs of cerebral small vessel disease in polluted cities. What looks like a healthy person on the outside may be quietly accumulating brain damage thanks to dirty air, bad luck, and bad policy. Worse still, vascular dementia tends to progress more abruptly than Alzheimer's. Symptoms often worsen in steps, each new vascular insult triggering a sudden drop in function. And unlike Alzheimer's, there are no drugs approved to slow or stop vascular dementia's advance. The only real prevention is keeping the vascular system healthy, and that means managing blood pressure, cholesterol, and increasingly air quality. This brings us to the harsh truth. Air pollution is not just a background irritant. It's a direct threat to the body's blood supply network, and by extension, to the brain's ability to function, remember, and reason. People living in high-exposure areas are not just at higher risk for heart attacks or strokes, they're at higher risk for the kind of brain death that leaves you physically alive but mentally erased. And unlike cigarette smoke or alcohol, which come with personal choice and warnings, air pollution is often unavoidable, a communal toxin with no off switch. And let's be clear, the people hit hardest by this double threat are often those with the least power to change their environment. Low-income neighborhoods, often situated near highways, factories, or power plants, see higher levels of pollution, and they also see higher rates of strokes, cognitive impairment, and dementia. Once again, environmental injustice rears its head, and it's wearing a neurologist's coat. So when public health experts warn about the long-term effects of poor air quality, they're not talking about abstract risks or hypothetical diseases. They're talking about real people, grandparents who suddenly forget their grandchildren's names, adults in their 50s who lose executive function after stroke, entire communities experiencing earlier and more aggressive cognitive aging. The solution? Cleaner air, stronger regulations, better urban planning, and more investment in green spaces and public transit. But most urgently, a reframing of how we talk about pollution. This isn't just an environmental issue. It's a brain issue. It's a vascular issue. It's a public health crisis hidden in plain sight, one that's quietly shaving years off the nation's cognitive lifespan. If we fail to act, the result won't just be more hospital visits or more medication. It will be more people robbed of their memories, their reasoning, and their independence, not because of genetics or aging, but because of the air they had no choice but to breathe.